Is a pentagram just an inverted pentacle? The short answer is no. Are inverted crosses and the number 666 really satanic? Well, yes and no. Addressing some annoying misinformation on satanic symbols in this episode of Satansplain.
Well, it's not Satan worship, it's Satanism. It's embracing the life-enriching things which have traditionally been given the devil's name. Pride, lust, earthly success, rational self-interest, atheism, humor, nonconformity, science, a passion for living, being selective about whom we love. We don't see these as shameful sins, but empowering ideals. And we also recognize the psychological power and fun of symbolism and aesthetics, so we utilize Satan as mythology's most fitting mascot for what we're about.
Satansplain. Satanic Talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M.
Magister Bill M here with Satansplain. It is 2024 and it is my birthday as I record this. As I'm sure most of you already know, the date of one's own birth is the highest of all satanic holidays. If you want to hear a little more about satanic holidays, you can go listen to Satansplain episode number 11. Rather than repeating all of that here, let's get right into what I'd really like to talk about. Some of you listeners may have noticed that a recurring theme with many Satansplain episodes is addressing and maybe debunking some ideas that we see show up in discussions on Satanism over and over again. And one particularly big misconception that I see showing up time and time again concerns the pentagram. I'm sure you know what the pentagram is. It's a 5-pointed star shape drawn with 5 straight overlapping lines, sometimes with a circle around it. Well, that much is all true. But the misconception is the claim that when you orientate the star 1 point down, it is a pentagram, and when you draw it 1 point up, it is called a pentacle. This, in a word, is bullshit, and I'll be addressing that in this episode. I also want to address things like inverted crosses and the number 666. And more importantly, not the people who say that these are the definitive satanic symbols, but the much more annoying people who say that these things are definitively not satanic and try to shame Satanists who choose to use these symbols. So before we get into all of that, I think there's a more fundamental point that is worth stating. And I'm going to beat this one to death, be forewarned. Not all symbols have definitive meanings in all contexts. There are many symbols which can mean very different things in different contexts. For example, hand gestures. Raise your hand. Go do it right now. Raise your hand. Make a fist. Now raise up just your index and middle fingers, keeping your thumb over your ring and pinky finger. Okay, what gesture, what symbol are you making? Well, a lot of people would say that this is the peace sign. Like you're a groovy hippie and you're saying, hey, peace, man. Now, is that the only meaning? No. In older times, doing this meant victory. You can find those famous photographs of President Richard Nixon doing the V for victory with his hands. In fact, in American Sign Language, the language for the deaf, it's literally the letter V. So that's a third meaning. Maybe if you're making this gesture, you just mean the number 2. Like you're at a bar, it's really loud, you're trying to order 2 drinks. So, you flash what looks like the peace symbol, but no, you're just saying the number 2. Or turn the hand the other way so that the back of the hand is facing somebody. And, well, in England, it means, well, you can look that up. It's not really something so pleasant. Or put the fingers together so that instead of being a V, they're more straight up together, and you get the Cub Scout salute, or American Sign Language for the letter U. So hopefully I've made my point. Some symbols can have multiple meanings, and you have to look at the context to see what that meaning is. Let's take another hand gesture. No, not the middle finger, but the sign of the horns. So make a fist, raise your index finger, raise your pinky finger. Don't extend the thumb, because that means I love you. Don't be one of those idiots at the concert who holds up the hand with the thumb extended. Close the thumb. Close it over the middle and ring fingers. Okay, you've got the sign of the horns. What does this mean? Again, it depends on the context. Does it have a meaning in Satanism? Yes, most certainly. We call it the sign of the horns. Satan and devils in general have often been depicted with horns, so the gesture resembles a head with horns. 3 fingers down represents denial of the Trinity from Christianity. Also, the fingers trace 3 sixes, numeral 6, shaped from the index and the middle fingers, another one with the pinky and ring fingers, and then the third with the thumb and the ring finger. We'll talk about the number 666 later. It's also not unlike the pentagram, 3 points down, 2 points up. We'll talk about that later as well. But what other meanings does this gesture have? I mentioned rock concerts, and you can see people in the audience of a rock concert doing this, particularly if it's a heavy metal concert. Is that because they're all Satanists and they're hailing Satan? No, it's because in the context of a concert, it means, yeah, rock on. Woo. It's fans showing their enthusiasm for the band. Now, why does this happen in heavy metal? Well, quickly, the man who popularized it was Ronnie James Dio. He started doing it back in 1980 when he joined the band Black Sabbath. Where did he get it from? Well, not from Satanism, even though the Church of Satan had been around since 1966 and was using it in ceremonies. No, Dio was an Italian-American from New York, and when he was a boy, he'd see his Italian grandmother flash the symbol. It was a way to throw somebody a curse, the evil eye, or prevent the evil eye if you held it up the other way. I have known a number of Italian-Americans who would wear a little pendant of this hand gesture as a necklace. Were they Satanists? Again, no. Were they heavy metal fans? No. Well, or if they were, it was coincidental. In that context, it was an Italian heritage thing. Yet another meaning of this horns gesture. I was at a rodeo last year, and I saw people flashing that sign because it, looks like a bull. There's a sports team also, the Texas Longhorns, whose fans use it for that reason too. In fact, it's a really old hand gesture. There are caves, cave paintings from Mesopotamia from 4,000 years ago, where people are depicted making this same horns gesture with their hands. So once again, it is all about the context. Curiously enough, I have a book called Gestures, and this Gestures book, the edition I have was printed in 1979. And what the authors of this book did was go around all different parts of Europe and ask people in different countries what they thought various hand gestures meant, because there were different meanings slightly in different countries. In fact, there's an old running joke. I don't know if this may be an urban myth, but it is said that the TV show Happy Days did not do so well in Greece because the main character of that TV show, the Fonz, used to hold up his thumbs, to mean, hey, I'm cool. But apparently in Greece, this gesture means fuck off or something. Never go hitchhiking in Greece, I guess. But anyway, this book of gestures had a chapter on the sign of the horns. And this was printed in 1979, so it was before Ronnie James Dio popularized the sign as a sign for heavy metal. And by the way, I don't give a shit if you want to say, oh, well, like John Lennon did it on the Yellow Submarine album and Gene Simmons did a thing before that. No. Irrelevant. Fuck you. Ronnie James Dio was the one who popularized it and cemented that association with it, with heavy metal. In any case, in this book, in this 1979 survey, nobody surveyed said that it meant heavy metal or rock music, or I think even Satanism. No, the number one answer from everybody was that this gesture was the sign of the cuckold. You may have heard the insult cuck in recent years. That's short for the word, which is supposed to be a man who watches his wife have sex with other men. So the gesture in this context is supposed to mean, hey, you have the horns of the cuck. Nya, you're a loser and I'm not. And you may see people try to photobomb photographs by holding up the horns behind somebody's head, making it look like they have horns. Here in the United States, we oddly enough, use the peace sign for that. Give the person bunny ears. All right, go figure. Now, some of you might be thinking, Bill, we know symbols can take on different meanings, different context. Everybody knows that. Well, to that I would say no, surprisingly not. Not everybody does. And I know this because we've seen over the years Christians, for example, who see the horns gesture or a pentagram or some other symbol show up somewhere and they say, that is a satanic symbol. What you're doing is satanic. You have to stop and repent now. You're giving power to Satan, which is stupid, of course. The flag of Texas has a 5-pointed star, and they have plenty of rodeos and games with the Texas Longhorns, or people are throwing the horns gesture. It would be incredibly stupid to call this all a satanic ritual. Now, what sort of idiots are incapable of grasping this concept, this concept of the nuance like this? Is it just Christians? No. I would say any ideological extremist who seems obsessed with a particular topic is usually stuck in a bubble where they project and see their feared thing everywhere they look. And don't think that this can only happen with right-wing Christians, because I've seen it happen with left-wing extremists too. Do you remember what happened with the OK symbol? Another gesture. I'm talking about the hand gesture where you open your hand all the way and you touch the tip of your index finger to the tip of the thumb. Now, as usual, it's a gesture with multiple meanings. Usually that means okay. In sign language, it's the letter F, I believe. Sometimes the gesture means 0 because you're holding up a circle. You're making a little circle with your fingers. But you have a lot of people today who will tell you, no, it means white supremacy or white power. The 3 fingers up make a W, and the other fingers kind of sort of make a letter P with the arm. Okay, where does this whole stupid notion come from? Did white supremacists invent it? No. It was a prank. It was a prank created on 4chan. So some internet trolls were sitting around one day, just several years ago, and they said, hey, all these politically correct left-wingers these days seem to think everything is racist. So let's pick something really, really mundane and commonplace and make a fake post claiming that it's actually a racist symbol, and let's see who falls for it. Well, needless to say, the prank worked, people fell for it, and even now, several years after it was already revealed to be a prank, people still fall for it. In fact, 3 years ago, there was a contestant on the game show Jeopardy named Kelly Donahue, and he had won 3 games in a row and uploaded a photo of himself holding up 3 fingers like that to signify the 3 games he won. But of course, he was accused of flashing a white supremacy sign. It's a secret dog whistle to other white supremacists. By the way, have you ever noticed that whenever anybody claims that something is a dog whistle, those people are the only ones who can hear it, not the people it's supposedly meant for? Go figure. But, anyway, he was accused of flashing a white supremacy sign, blah, 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 publicly shamed. And the worst part of it all is that he apologized for offending people. He should have just said, no, it was 3 fingers for the 3 games I won. I am not a racist. You people are all idiots. Oh, well. Somebody also caused an uproar sometime, it was a few years ago, holding up that same gesture, making the OK sign in the background when a news camera was pointed in his direction. It was in the sports arena. And idiots, of course, said, oh, he's showing the white power sign. He's a racist Nazi bigot. Meanwhile, the rest of us saw it, and a lot of us said, hey, he's playing the floating asshole game. We used to do that game in college. So you hold down your hand like that below the waist, you make the OK symbol, and if your friend sees your hand making that circle with your hand, you get to go punch your friend in the arm. On a side note, I had a friend who did that so often, and we were so annoyed by it that we changed the rule so that if we saw him doing it, we got to punch him. Anyway, let's get back to Satansplain. Do we see Satanists ever making this same mistake of ignoring context and thinking a symbol means only one thing? Well, unfortunately, I see it a lot these days, namely with the inverted cross. In fact, I would not be surprised if there are comments to this very Satansplain episode on social media or wherever from some nerd who never listened to the episode but just saw the headline and is commenting saying, "Yes, the inverted cross is a Christian symbol. It is the cross of St. Peter." Fuck off. Just fuck off with that. But Bill, it's true. Yes. One meaning of the inverted cross is that it is the cross of St. Peter. Peter the Apostle, who was allegedly one of the original 12 apostles of Jesus, and the story goes is that he was going to be crucified, but he was said he was unworthy of being crucified in the same way as Jesus, so they crucified him upside down, and Peter is believed to be the first pope, so you can see an inverted cross on one of the thrones of the Pope of the Catholic Church, which, of course, makes the idiot Christians, like the ones who listen to way too much Alex Jones and InfoWars, say, the Pope is a Satanist. Look, they're not even hiding it. Yeah, those people are idiots. But, if you believe the symbol cannot be satanic because of what it means in that Catholic context, I would say you're not being that much smarter. So the inverted cross in the satanic context means Christianity inverted. It means the denial or the condemnation of Christianity. Now, is this the chosen symbol of Satanism? No. The chosen symbol of Satanism is the sigil of Baphomet, which you see on the cover of the Satanic Bible, or also really just the pentagram itself with the point down. That's, the other basic symbol of Satanism. You can go to churchofsatan.com and read all about the history of the sigil. There's a nice article on that. And the reason this is our symbol and not the inverted cross is because Satanism is not just inverted Christianity, of course. It is not just about looking at what Christians are doing and doing the opposite. No, there is an entire codified religion called Satanism, which you can find in the Satanic Bible. Notice that the 9 satanic statements, with the exception of Satanic Statement number 9, don't mention anything about Christianity. They are affirmative statements which stand on their own. And even Satanic Statement number 9, I would argue, can extend well beyond Christianity as a statement about how institutions always need a bad guy. Having said all of that, that's not to say we never use the inverted cross. If you open the book, The Satanic Rituals, and you look at Le Messe Noir, the Black Mass, one of the suggested props we have for that is an inverted cross. That's because in that specific context, you are blaspheming Christianity as a means of helping your own religious deprogramming. But even aside from that, the inverted cross has, for over a century, shown up in a lot of pop culture. It has shown up in some famous horror movies, or in blasphemous heavy metal bands. And this has really enforced that association in the zeitgeist that inverted cross equals satanic. And I mean, if you were to walk down the street with an inverted cross, I highly doubt anybody would say, "Oh, look, it's the cross of St. Peter." No. They would say, "Oh, it's a satanic symbol," if they recognized it at all. And this brings me to a point that is lost on the nerds, the aforementioned nerds who are so quick to say, "It's the cross of St. Peter, it's a Christian symbol." Okay. Remember, it says in the Satanic Bible, it is one thing to accept things intellectually. It is another to accept them emotionally. No amount of rationalization and whining that it's actually the cross of St. Peter will make the satanic association go away in people's minds. Now, to further illustrate this point, let me make an analogy here. Think of the symbol, the swastika. It's a symbol that evokes a lot of emotional response because people see it and they think of Nazis and World War II and genocide and bigotry and so on. Now, somebody could point at the swastika and say, hey, it's that ancient Sanskrit symbol that has nothing to do with racism or Germans. And that observation, well, it's not incorrect. It's perfectly true. I first learned this myself when I was a kid. I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood, but one of my best friends was a boy from India, and I was over his house, and I saw a version of the swastika drawn on a mirror. And, I saw that as a little boy. I gasped and I said, oh, isn't that a Nazi symbol? Because, I had seen it in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And my friend laughed and he said, no, that, for him, it was an ancient Hindu symbol, and so on. It had nothing to do with Nazis. And again, that is true. The swastika has that older meaning. I have a geometry book on spirals that was printed in the earliest 20th century, but before the Third Reich. And there was a chapter on swastikas saying how it's such a beautiful and ancient symbol that means this and that and so on. But again, the acceptance of things intellectually versus emotionally. What would happen if I were to go walking down the street wearing a shirt with a big swastika on it? Well, I'm sure it would trigger and anger a lot of people. Should I take the superior intellectual route and explain to all of them, see, I'm not a Nazi, no. This is actually an ancient Hindu symbol, and it was understood as that for thousands of years until that one German dictator used it to mean something else. Would somebody punching the shit out of me in public for wearing a swastika listen to my reasoning? Listen to reason at all? No. I would be guilty of the satanic sin of solipsism, thinking that because I'm intellectually correct in my mind of what the swastika really means, that other people would or should be able to automatically see it my way, come around to my way of thinking. Also, the sin of pretentiousness. And of course, the sin of stupidity, the satanic sin of stupidity, wearing a swastika in public and thinking that there wouldn't be an adverse reaction. To put yourself in physical danger like that. Yeah, that is stupid. So the analogy here with the inverted cross is that, again, no matter how much you want to rationalize in your mind that the inverted cross is the cross of St. Peter and a Christian symbol, people don't think of it like that. It still emotionally resonates with many Satanists and non-Satanists alike as an anti-Christian symbol. Which brings me to the number 666. Does this number have anything to do with Satanism? Well, the short answer is no. Where the hell does this number come from? Well, it's a line from the Bible. It's from the end of Revelation chapter 13 in the Holy Bible, saying that it's the number of the beast. Well, who the hell is the beast, or 666? Well, there are numerous theories. There was the story that it's numerology of sorts and is a reference to the Roman Emperor Nero, and that the rest of the symbols in the story are political commentary. So, like the 7 crowns and the 7 heads represent these 7 countries or whatever. But in more recent years, I read a story that an older manuscript was found, and they discovered that the original number in older translations was 616, and then it somehow got mistranslated at some point. So, in any case, this number has nothing to do with Satanism. However, just like the inverted cross, the number 666 has shown up in a lot of pop culture in satanic contexts, movies like The Omen, other horror movies too, Christian scare propaganda, and so on. And the result of all of this is that the number does, more often than not, provoke an emotional response. I remember I used to work back in college. I used to work in summers as a cashier, and I remember sometimes the total would come up to 666, and some people would freak out and think it was unlucky and want to buy something else. I told my manager we should have more things that add up to that price because it makes people buy more. But anyway, so it provokes that emotional response, and as Satanists, we can make use of that. The best example, back in the year 2006, the date of June 6 was coming up, and people realized that the date would be 6, 6, and 6. So some Satanists from the Church of Satan had the idea of, hey, let's capitalize on this. The emotions will be running high. Let's get together and do a big satanic ritual. And that's what we did in Los Angeles. I was there, second row. I know some other Satanists could not attend because they had similarly made their own plans for the day. I know one or two Satanist couples who got married on that day, for example, because they wanted their anniversary to be 6606. Pretty cool. So the bottom line is this. Do inverted crosses or the number 666 have anything to do with Satanism itself? Inherently, no. However, the fact that they have such a strong satanic association among the masses is something that a Satanist is more than welcome to capitalize on. So if you are a Satanist and you like inverted crosses or the number 666, I say go ahead, knock yourself out. Enjoy it. And when some asshole tries to ridicule you and say you're wearing the cross of St. Peter, tell them to fuck off and send them a link to this episode. All right, let's take a break right now. When we come back, we'll talk about the real difference between pentagrams and pentacles. No, it's not as simple as which way they point. Also some listener mail, and some big news on how you can support Satansplain. We'll take a break. You are listening to Satansplain.
You are listening to Satansplain, real satanic talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M. For questions, comments, and correspondence, send an email to bill@satansplain.com.
In 1966, Anton LaVey created the Church of Satan, marking the beginning of the Age of Fire and Year 1 Anno Satanas. In 1969, he published the Satanic Bible, codifying Satanism as a religion, the first time it's been done in human history.
In the name of Satan, ruler of the earth, king of hell, come forth from the pit, bestow the blessings of hell upon us. For we are your children, and we invoke thee this night.
In 2001, I was appointed High Priest of the Church of Satan. In 2007, I published the Satanic Scriptures, further defining and expanding on Satanic philosophy and greater magic ritual.
Hail, Satan full of might! Hail, Satan full of might! Our allegiance is with thee! Our allegiance is with thee! Cursed are they! Cursed are they! The God adorers! The God adorers! And cursed are the worshippers! And cursed are the worshippers! Of the Nazarene eunuch! Of the Nazarene eunuch!
For the past 50 years, the Church of Satan has stood as the sole organization to define and defend Satanism as a religion. And though pretenders to the infernal throne have come and gone, we have stood the test of time and will into the future. Visit churchofsatan.com for more information and read the Satanic Bible and the Satanic Scriptures. Knowledge is the solution for ignorance. Hail, Satan!
Hail, Satan! Hail, Satan!
Handmade, all-natural, botanical perfumes, soaps, and ceremonial incense, sculptures and jewelry to adorn yourself and your other altars. All this and more await you at moonandsunemporium.com. Ritual perfumes and other occult fine art luxuries, created and curated by me, Priestess Sarah Josephine Clark, with tarot readings by Reverend Dr. Dylan Clark. moonandsunemporium.com.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. You can listen to episodes of Satansplain in a variety of ways: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, and other places, including right on the official website itself, Satansplain.com. Please give likes and follows to Satansplain on X, Facebook, and YouTube. For all correspondence, you can email me directly. bill@satansplain.com is the email address. And if I have not thrown enough websites at you, I'm going to have to throw one more. I have officially opened the Satansplain channel on locals.com. What is locals.com? Well, Locals is a place where content creators can share their work and optionally set up exclusive content for subscribers. So if you like Satansplain, please go to locals.com and create a free account for yourself. And then go follow the Satansplain channel, and that is at satansplain.locals.com. It is free to join Locals. It is free to join what they call the Satansplain community. I hate that word community, but that's the terminology they use. When you join, it will be like a message board of sorts with only other people from Locals. Now, what exactly will be there and what we'll do, I'm still exploring this myself. What I'd like to do is include some things you won't find elsewhere, like Satanism essays, photos from Satanism events, maybe do like live chats and Q&A and all that fun stuff. Many listeners have asked me how they can support Satansplain. I greatly appreciate that. And I said I wanted to, people who've asked me this, I said I want to at least wait until the show has some longevity and a lot more listeners before I launch anything like that. Well, here we are now. And an additional thing you can do on Locals is subscribe to the Satansplain channel for only $5 a month. If you join in the next 30 days, you can become a subscriber in that month for free. Use the promo code BIRTHDAY if you decide to sign up. Right now, like I said, I'm just starting, just trying to set things up, trying to get things off the ground there. What I have done so far is provided worded transcriptions for the first 30 or 40 episodes. I'd like to offer discounts for people who want to pay a year in advance, or discounts if you're a Church of Satan member. Unfortunately, right now, with the way Locals is set up, I can't do that until I get 50 people to follow the channel. Again, it's free to follow the channel. So if you just want to, please create a free account on locals.com and follow the Satansplain channel. I would really appreciate that. And if you have any ideas of stuff you'd like to see, feel free to let me know. bill@satansplain.com. Send me an email. And now back to the show. I mentioned earlier that symbols can have different meanings depending on the context, even though you'll see some idiots who swear they can only have one and only one meaning. Always a bad meaning. And that this invalidates any other meanings a symbol might have. Yet another example where people do this is the pentagram. So the 5-pointed star made with 5 straight lines, often, though not always, with a circle around it. What does it mean? Is it a satanic symbol? Well, for us Satanists, it certainly is a satanic symbol, just like the horns gesture. We certainly, but in both of those cases, though, we don't have a monopoly on the symbol. You can find lots of different pagan religions who use the pentagram. It was supposedly the symbol of the Pythagoreans, the ancient order led by the Greek mathematician Pythagoras. There have even been some Christians who used the pentagram as a Christian symbol. Believe it or not. Yes, you can look this up. There is, for example, a church that I believe is still standing and still has a pentagram in their architecture. Then, they have their own meaning they attach to this. There's a symbol. They say it's a symbol of the 5 wounds of Christ or the 5 mysteries of the Rosary and so on. In any case, Wiccans, those white witchcraft people who practice the religion of Wicca and other various pagans, will almost always wear the pentagram 1 point up. And the reasons for this are actually mentioned in the Satanic Bible, and numerous witchcraft books for that matter. You see, one of the main reasons for that is the 5 points represent, among other things, the 5 elements: water, air, earth, fire, and spirit, the 5th element, sometimes called akasha or ether. And so you have the 5 points, the top of 5, the top point of the pentagram, as they wear it, that represents the spirit element. So symbolically, it's the spirit rising above the 4 elements, the spirit rising above and beyond the material elements, spirit over material. Now, as Satanists, we wear the pentagram 1 point down because Satanism is a religion of the flesh, not the spirit. Materialism, indulgence, grounding, literally pointing to the ground and representing being grounded, steadfast, realistic. The Satanic Bible goes on to explain that this position also gives you the shape for the goat head, fits nicely in there. We have the goat there as the archetypal symbol. That's the opposite of the sheep. That's why we have the goat. There's other long traditions, associated with it and other mythologies, but the bottom line is that we are not the docile sheep looking for the shepherd. We are the rugged goats, symbolically. We see that the 2 points at the top of the horns are, of the pentagram, those are the horns of duality. Satan is a byproduct of that uncomfortable duality that people had to invent for contrast, to feel better about themselves. Again, Satanic statement number 9. You could argue that the 3 points down in the pentagram are the Holy Trinity denied. So yeah, notice some parallels with the sign of the horns and hand gesture in the pentagram. But let's get back to this claim that point up makes it a pentacle and point down makes it a pentagram. This is not true. So in geometry, a shape's name doesn't change when you spin it a different way. If you have a square, it's still a square, even if you draw it with its tips pointing up and down. So a pentagram is a shape too. The word pentagram is, like a lot of geometry words, Greek in origin. When you break it down, penta is the Greek prefix that means 5, and gram is the shape. Namely, gram means a shape, so namely the sort of overlapping line star shape, or a polygram as it's formally called in geometry. So that's what a pentagram is. It's a special 5-pointed star shape, just like the Star of David is called in geometry a hexagram, a 6-pointed star shape. So if the pent in pentagram means 5, then you would think the pent in the word pentacle means 5 too. I've heard it claimed that the real difference is that a pentagram is the geometric shape and that a pentacle is an object fashioned in that shape. So it's sort of like the difference between a sphere and a ball. A sphere is the formal name for the geometric shape. When you fashion something in the shape of a sphere, it's called a ball. Or, for example, circle and ring. A piece of jewelry is a ring. The geometric shape it is a circle. But apparently this is not the real difference between pentagram and pentacle. It turns out that the word pentacle does not have anything to do with the number 5 at all. It is not a Greek word, but it is derived from a French word. And it comes from the old French word pentacole. P-E-N-D, that's a D as in David, A-C-O-L, pentacole. Pend, in this case, means to hang, P-E-N-D, pentacole. So pend, hang, a is the preposition to something. And finally, call, C-O-L, means the neck. So pentacle, hang to neck, something hung from a person's neck. So a pentacle is something worn around the neck, a talisman. You take a little plate or a piece of clay or whatever, carve magic symbols into it, you wear it as a necklace, that is a pentacle. Some of the talisman that people wore in those days were pentagrams, some were not pentagrams. So why are so many Wiccans insistent on calling it a pentacle and not a pentagram? My guess My guess on this is that the word pentagram just has some evil stigma to it, and Wiccans, as usual, want to play the euphemism game and whitewash the issue. Curiously enough, if you look at Wicca and witchcraft books written before the 1980s, they will refer to it as a pentagram. Even in the 1980s, if you looked at witchcraft sources from the UK instead of the US, you saw them still using the word pentagram. Probably because the Satanic Panic one wasn't as big in Europe as it was in the US at that time. Now, one final bit of trivia I would like to add. Wearing the pentagram point down is not even necessarily satanic in all situations. There are some pagans who use the pentagram point down in some situations to mean something else. They may use this to represent the Greek god Pan, or use it for some initiation rites. I remember a friend of mine many years ago in Salem, Massachusetts, where there have been a couple of generations of self-identifying witches and Wiccans. He said a few witches came back from an initiation ceremony of theirs wearing the point-down pentagrams, and they walked into one of the local New Age or witchcraft stores in Salem. And the clerk threw a fit and freaked out about these devil worshippers making their way into her store and wanted them to get out. Again, context. Well, that's enough of that topic about satanic symbols and everything. Let us switch gears now to hear a Satanecdote. A satanic anecdote, which means cue the Satanecdote theme song.
Satanic anecdotes. Satanecdotes.
This Satanecdote comes from Spooky, a fellow Church of Satan member. Spooky explains that he's a vendor for a drink company, and that while he's working, he's driving his truck and he's listening to music or podcasts. And on this particular day, he was sitting in his truck with the windows rolled up. He was just eating a snack and listening to Satansplain while he worked. It seemed he didn't think he had the volume up all that loud. However, it was apparently just loud enough that it had the following effect. A Jehovah's Witness, or some kind of person like that, was approaching him in the truck, approaching with a Bible in his hand, walked up to the driver's door, where Spooky was, and just then, it seems the ad for churchofsatan.com was playing on Satansplain, right at the end, where you can hear everybody shout, "Hail Satan." Well, needless to say, at this moment, Spooky said the look on the Jehovah's Witness's face was hilarious, and he literally turned around and just walked away. So Spooky posted this story, and it was actually Reverend Jeff Ivins from Radio Free Satan who said, "Hey, you should send this to Bill to use as a Satanecdote." So there you have it. Thanks to Spooky, and thanks also to Reverend Jeff. Let's read a couple of more emails before we go. I have one here from a few weeks back. I wrote back to the listener, but I might as well read my answers here too. John asks two questions. Question 1, what do you think of Marilyn Manson's recent allegations? Considering he has a priesthood in the COS, could he possibly lose this? And I explained to John, I actually don't know what the accusations were. I don't even remember. Would he show up in the news for something stupid again? I don't know. But I explained in any case to John that, long story short, Marilyn Manson has decidedly stopped having anything to do with the Church of Satan, and it has been that way for quite a while now. I have a whole episode on the topic. Check out Satansplain episode number 35 to hear more about that. And John's second question is if there's a way for my other show, The Devil's Mischief, to be on Spotify. And the short answer to that is unfortunately no. I don't think it can. And that's because of licensing issues. So, in short, like shows on Radio Free Satan, like The Devil's Mischief or The Metro, play copyrighted content. And in order to be able to do that online legally, there's licensing involved, and you have to follow the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998 and all this stuff. And unfortunately, when you try to put that on a place like YouTube or Spotify, they'll automatically detect the copyright stuff and flag it and take it down, even if we have some kind of licensing in place. So the bottom line is no, unfortunately, it's a mess beyond our control, and you're limited on where you can hear the Devil's Mischief and Radio for Satan shows because of these rules. So unfortunately, no Devil's Mischief on Spotify, so far as I know, for that reason. And finally, another email here from Naveen. Naveen writes, "Hello, Bill. I'm new to Satanism. I recently read the Satanic Bible and instantly identified with the philosophy. I found your podcast because I was looking for somehow to clear up the ritual and magic side of the religion. You do just that with the 2-part episodes on ritual. I enjoyed it very much. My question is with step 9 of the 13 steps. If I am performing a solo ritual and don't find one of the 3 conjurations, compassion, lust, destruction, to be relevant, do I skip that step and move on to step 10? I'd like to perform a ritual to symbolically purge myself of my previous Eastern spirituality way of thinking and the frustration it causes. Perhaps that would fall into destruction of an enemy?" So first of all, glad you found the 2-part episode on ritual to be helpful. I will have a lot more to say in future episodes about ritual and about the topic of greater magic for that matter. And I wrote back to Naveen also to say that, yes, I would say you can skip the conjuration and keep the rest. So, as I'm sure many of you listeners already know, the Satanic Bible presents a basic but customizable ritual format and breaks it down into 13 steps. The first 3 are just setup steps. Dress ritual, set up your altar, turn off the lights, light up the candles, that sort of stuff. Then you start the actual ritual, ring the bell, do the invocation, infernal names, and so on. Then you get to the heart of the ritual, the climax, steps 9 and 10. 11 is to do group requests if you want. 12, pick an Enochian key. 13, close it out. Now, the whys and wherefores of all these steps is something I covered in Satansplain episodes number 48 and 49, but the way this is set up gives you just enough structure so that you can get something going. Because I see people all the time who say, "Oh, ritual is all about you, and you can do anything you want." Well, okay, that's not very helpful for new Satanists who are just trying to get something going. I mean, it's like telling somebody who's never played the piano before, "Oh, music and expression is all about you, so just forget the rules and express yourself." It doesn't help that person at all. Maybe instead take some music lessons first. Maybe read a couple of piano instruction books. Then when you learn more about the instrument, you can learn more about expression and so on. And likewise, again, the 13-step ritual is there to provide some necessary degree of structure you can follow. And as I said in those 2 Satansplain episodes, there is something to be said psychologically about going through the process of gathering the tools and going through the motions with them. There's something disciplinary about it. Having said all that, the standard 13-step ritual in the Satanic Bible is not only structured enough so you can get going on something, but it is also loose enough to be customizable to do whatever it is you want to do. Now, can you have a satanic ritual that doesn't fall into one of those 3 categories from the Satanic Bible that we have the conjurations for? Lust, compassion, or destruction? Well, yes, of course you can have a satanic ritual that doesn't fall into any of those 3 categories. For example, look at the rituals in our book called The Satanic Rituals. Or look at the rituals that are in the Satanic Scriptures. The wedding, the funeral, Rite of Ragnarok. None of these follow the standard 13 steps, really. But one thing they do have all in common with the 13-step ritual is they have a clear beginning, they have a middle, and they have an end. So you set things up, you get in the mindset for ritual, set up your tools, and there's a couple of introductory things to say and do, and then you get to the heart of the ritual, you build it all up into an emotional climax, and then the third part, you finally formally close out the ritual so that your mind can leave that fantasy mindset, come back to the mundane, rational, real world thinking of the day-to-day world. In fact, I said to Naveen, It sounds like what you want to do here is essentially a black mass, only for Eastern religions instead of for Christianity. Now we have Le Messe Noir, the black mass, in these satanic rituals for the purpose of getting rid of the irrational religious guilt and religious programming that a Satanist may have gotten from Christianity. So again, this is the black mass, not the same as the standard ritual of Satanism. So, but I mean, what if instead of Christianity, you were brainwashed into the equally irrational and unsatanic religions of the Far East? Well, I completely understand why a Satanist in such a position would want to use ritual to purge himself or herself of those sorts of guilts just the same. And if you want some kind of formalized way to do that, you could just use the 13 steps where you set up a ritual in the same sort of way, you close it in the same sort of way, and in the middle you do whatever it is you have to do, whatever blasphemous theatrics you have in mind. In fact, frankly, I'd be interested in seeing what this might look like, at least in written format. Though if it's too personal, I could understand not wanting to share it. But still, the idea of doing that sounds intriguing to me, even if it's not a religion I was raised in, wasn't raised in Eastern religions, but yeah, I'd like to see how that would be structured. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Satansplain. Thank you for listening. Please sign up on locals.com and join the Satansplain channel. Thank you. Until then, hail Satan.
You have been listening to Satansplain. For more information about the show, visit the official website at Satansplain.com. And for more information on Satanism itself, visit churchofsatan.com. This episode is copyright 2024, Magister Bill M.